So Leeds Festival announced like the first batch of acts, including all the headliners, a few weeks ago now. And obviously we spoke about last year's festival and our predictions on the podcast a few months ago. So I thought we'd jump into it. The first headliner on the Friday at Leeds Festival is Billie Eilish.
Yep.
Actually one that we both thought would be there.
We did, and you know, it's definitely an act that they needed to get in because I think a female headliner is somewhat required now, isn't it?
Yeah, it's definitely needed. And then under her, you've got Steve Lacey and Declan McKenna. To be honest, I think they're pretty good sub acts. Steve Lacey, I don't really know much about him, but I know he's big and he's very like in the spotlight at the minute. And then Declan McKenna's just like good sing-along indie tunes that everyone will like.
See, this is the thing, I'll be completely honest. Steve Lacey and Declan McKenna, neither of their names trigger anything in my head. All I can think of is Derek Acora, who was that medium who spoke to ghosts.
Oh, I remember him.
That's all, when you said his name, I was like, Derek Acora.
Yeah, I remember him actually. What on Most Haunted?
Yeah, that one. Sense a ghost in the room.
He was bad in. Yeah. And then the other headliner on the Friday is, in my opinion, one of the worst Leeds Fest headliners in history. And I might get a lot of slack for this, actually. I imagine when we put this online, there'll be some Imagine Dragon fans that are like,
I mean, the headlines, so there will be Imagine Dragon fans.
Do you know what I think this is a case of, to be honest? And I kind of think this throughout the whole lineup, is they've spent a lot of the budget on Billie Eilish, and especially for that day. So they've gone and got Imagine Dragons, who realistically, like the demographic of Leeds Festival is not Imagine Dragons fans. Like I have not seen anyone actually excited.
Can you tell me what the demographic for Imagine Dragons is?
It's like 40-year-old mums.
Is it? Is it actually like I genuinely don't know?
I don't know anyone who's like
I don't.
I know a few of the songs, mainly because they had one or two on Beat Saber. Yeah, and that was big back in the day. But like, I just don't know who's going to see them.
Well.
And then the two under Imagine Dragons, you've got Becky Hill, who I know is quite big, to be fair. It's not really my cup of tea.
I didn't expect her to be that high up. But again, I think they're trying to kind of do a bit of equality thing here, where they're saying, right, let's have both types. And I get it. And personally, I mean, Little TJ. No idea who the hell that is.
They're big, apparently.
So apparently they're big enough. So the fact that Becky Hill's, topping them as well is impressive. I quite like it.
One of my favourite acts on this whole poster is in the smaller section here, and that's Don Brocco. I've seen them a few times. Always have a hype crowd. I wonder if they'll actually be on the main stage, or if they might like headline one of the bigger tents when Imagine Dragons or Billie Eilish are on, because that would make sense as well. And then you've got a few others, like Shy FX is a pretty big DJ. The Snuts are an up-and-coming indie band.
Snuts. Andy C as well, drum and bass. He's good.
Yeah,
like a bit of Andy C.
Yeah. He's been at Leeds Fest so many times.
He's just one of them. I think he's one of them artists that he'll just go, yeah, I can do that, because he's just free any night, because he's just got to bring his decks.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
And then we'll move on to the next day. So we've got Sam Fender as one of the headliners, and this is one when we were doing our Leeds Festival predictions, neither of us actually thought that Fender had headlined, because he's got two shows at St James's Park, but announced as a headliner. To be honest, like, I think he's big enough. I'm just surprised. I thought that he might have a bit more of a break this year. Mm-hmm. But I suppose if you get offered to headline Reading Leeds, it's going to be a very hard one to turn down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I imagine it's well paid gig as well. So, and plus, I mean, if he's already on the circuit, get that money.
He's headlining Transmit as well up in Scotland, so he's definitely about.
I mean, like he might as well. If he's already doing it.
That'll be a fun headliner. Loads of people will go see him. Yeah. Under him, you've got Laurel Carner, who I quite like. I know a few of his tunes. He's decent,
him, but he's all right.
Yeah, and then Wet Leg. I personally think that Wet Leg is like listening to paint dry slowly.
I like that one song, in your lounging in your chaise underwear. I don't know what the hell she says. You know which one I mean. You know exactly which one I mean. So I think I know what you're saying, and a lot of people, which plays into that, are saying that Wet Leg but are more like industry plants in the way that it might not have been a up-and-coming band. And BBC, I mean, you can tell BBC introducing and Radio 1 and all that grabbed them, and they went, get them for some reason. You know, when they just do it with artists and you don't know why, you can't perceive the reason why they chose them out of all the artists, but they've definitely been overhyped is the term I'd use. I don't mind them, but I don't think they should be where they are.
To be honest, with Wet Leg,
it's my choice. So, yeah.
I just think I don't know where they came from or why they got so big. The music really isn't for me. Mm-hmm. Like, they clearly have a lot of fans. They've got millions of monthly listeners after releasing like one album. Mm-hmm. But I just think they're boring, man. I just think they have nothing to them. I don't know. I suppose they probably are big enough to be in that spot already. And by the time this comes around, they'll have probably released another album or EP that's done
Yeah.
really well.
Yeah.
So I can't really say they're not big enough. It's
No.
just I won't go see them.
No,
Like, definitely.
no.
And then the other headliner on that day is Foals.
Good one for you.
I love Foals. I mentioned them as one of my contenders for album of the year. They're really good. I've seen them a couple times live. Fantastic band live. I just don't think they're big enough to headline anymore. Like they're fantastic, and I will definitely go see them, and I'll be rushing from Foals to Sam Fender. But if you're not like a big indie rock fan, Foals have like dropped off. Last time they did Millennium Square in Leeds in the summer, and I don't think it sold out. And before that, they were doing like an Academies tour, or they did like maybe like Castlefield Bowl and stuff in Manchester. But I feel like a band that's not big enough to do arenas in the UK anymore maybe isn't big enough to headline. But that's when you've got to take into account the fact that there's 2 stages.
And also but if you compare what you're seeing against the other headline acts of the other stages, Foals really doesn't fall into that list of size, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's a difficult one.
It seems weird compared to the sheer size of the other acts. Foals being in there, again, not complaining at all. There is no complaints that they're doing it. It's just a surprising choice.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely go see them, but I was a bit like, whoa, as if.
Yeah.
And then I don't know who Bicep Live are, to be honest.
It's just Bicep, I think.
Is it a rapper? Is it a DJ?
I think it's a band.
Oh.
Called Bicep. I know a band called Bicep. Whether Bicep Live is that band, I don't know.
No idea.
I couldn't really tell you. I
and
could
then,
not.
Obviously, I've heard of Trippie Redd next to them.
I don't mind some of his stuff. You know, it's all right. He's got this aesthetic of like heavy metal-y kind of. I mean, you can tell by his logo. He's going for like kind of the Anthrax, edgy Megadeth kind of vibe, like 80s thrash metal. But his music is. I wouldn't say I listen to it, but I wouldn't say it's terrible. It's a bit SoundCloud rappy. So I can understand people not liking it as much, but he is a big artist. He deserves.
I think he's big enough to be in that spot.
Yeah, for
My
sure.
only thing with Trippie Redd being at Leeds Festival is I've seen lots of reports of people going to see him live, and he shows up late, only does a couple songs, like literally like 3 or 4 songs.
He is one of them rappers that is, I think I don't want to throw him under the bus, but one of those rappers that's like a lean drinker and like gets really fucked up and like shows up on stage and slurs the lyrics.
Yeah, this is what I mean. I've seen videos of him live on TikTok where he may as well not even be there. Like he's just like it is.
And I mean, there's some shows where people accept that and that's what they're wanting to see. But I feel like sometimes it's taking a piss. But let's move on. We've got. I don't really know too many people that are underneath. I mean, I know Yumi at 6, and I'm very surprised that they're not in a big name font.
Oh, I'm not.
Are you not? I mean,
Nah.
they used to be. I mean, maybe I'm just out of touch, but I'm sure they used to be somewhat big.
I mean, to be
like
fair,
on levels of like all time low.
Yeah, but all time low weren't even massive name on the last poster.
No, I
they were
know.
like third
But
on a
I
day.
figured they'd be. I don't know. I just figured
Nah,
Yumi at 6 seemed to be a bit.
They are
shafted
quite big
there.
still. Yumi at 6, and I don't know really Meeks, Nessa Barrett, or Tion Wayne. I've heard of them.
I've heard of Tion Wayne. I haven't heard of the other two.
Yeah, I suppose Yumi at 6 could be a little bit higher, but honestly, I think that's pretty fair. I think that they're one of those bands at this point that's like they sell out their tours at the academies. They're quite happy to be at Reading and Leeds. I think that they're the type of band that wouldn't argue being on earlier on the day now. Like they wouldn't say no, we want a higher spot. They'd just be like, all right,
let's
let
just
the
play
younger
it.
kids
Yeah.
do it.
I think I've kind of got like a warped perception of how big they are as an artist because growing up, I was in like the little emo scene. So everybody I knew them.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard anything of them recently, but I just figured, when you just think,
they
must
must be
still be big.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe they weren't even big back then, but yeah.
Yeah, I think they were. And then moving on to the last day, the first headliner we've got is The Killers. Again, I mentioned them as one of my acts of the year this year. A fantastic headliner. To be honest,
Have you ever seen them at a festival?
No, not at a festival. I've only ever seen them once, and that was at the Doncaster Stadium earlier this year. So I'm more than happy to see them again. They'll just be a band where everyone in the crowd will know 4 or 5 songs at least, like probably a few more than that, to be fair. And it'll just be a good vibe. Like I'm just happy with The Killers, to be honest.
And with it being a festival show, it'd be nice for you because it'll be a different vibe. And bands tend to put on different stage shows versus festival shows, so it'd be interesting to see.
And I
how they
think
swap
that
it
they
up.
like, for me, when I look at this lineup, I look at Killers, Fender, Foals, and see a pretty decent indie like rock lineup there, which is what I'm really going for this time round at Leeds Fest. So yeah, just Yeah, a good pick. As for the people under them, Central C, I know he's really big, like, and he's very in the spotlight.
I only know that one song.
That homophobic.
Yeah, that's the
yeah.
only song I know. And the only reason for that is because TikTok, obviously.
Now, to be fair, I think that he is quite big, like, within that scene. But I also do know that at the start of this year, because I remember looking, he was doing an album launch show at the Wardrobe in Leeds, which is fair. Like, loads of artists do small album launch shows, but he didn't even sell out. So
how's he doing?
He didn't
that
even
then?
like that, but I don't. He has blown up since then on TikTok and stuff.
Do you think it could be? Again, we're just doing this out of speculation because neither of us really listen to him. We don't really have an opinion on him or his music. We're not trying to insult him. Do you think it could be because he's such a household name because of not just that one song? I imagine he has other viral songs on TikTok. But do you think his like Central C people know that name? That's enough of a pull to make. Because, I mean, they're obviously, this lineup makes no sense because it doesn't seem like they've got a key demographic in mind at all. But if you wanted to attract a bunch of Zoomers, you know, TikTok star names are the ones that you put higher up. So maybe they're doing it as like a sales point.
Do you know what I think it is?
Or maybe there'll be another act announced and it'll actually get pushed down a bit.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, he is quite big. He has loads of monthly listeners because of that one song that went viral. And he does have some other songs.
He can't just play that one song.
No, he does have some others that have got like
a
a fair few listens.
Yeah.
I think for me, the rest of this lineup has been really lacking in UK rappers.
Yeah,
and he is one of the up and coming, like, people are definitely going to want to see him. And he's only released like a mixtape or two. So I think that's just them saying, look, we still got some of this, but not loads. And then next to him...
We're still cool, we're still hip.
Next to him, you've got Nothing But Thieves, who have been around for a while now. They're a pretty decent band. I actually got tickets to like Live at Leeds Festival last year because they were one of the headliners and then they dropped out. I've never seen them. Definitely go see them. They're pretty decent.
Yeah, they'd be good. That'd be fun.
And then the last headliner of Leeds Festival, which it saddens me, right? I suppose Killers will be on after him, but like it's Lewis Capaldi, which like Lewis Capaldi to me, right, is one of those characters where I like him. I think he's funny. He's a funny person. Like I actually, as a person, think that he is jokes, but his music depresses me.
Yeah, so I don't know if I've ever seen him come out and say it, but it almost feels like, obviously he's making that music, he must enjoy it to an extent, but it almost feels like he's making that music because he knows that music sells, and he knows that's what he can do, and he's niched himself, and he's like, why would I leave this niche? There's been room for another James Blunt to come in for a little while now. Why don't I fill that niche of, James Blunt, and then somebody else, and then Sam Smith, and then there's always that one singer that does those really annoying like whiny songs. And I think Lewis Capaldi's filled that hole pretty well. And yeah, as a person, I think if genuinely 100% confident in saying that if that man had not been successful in music, he would have gone into stand-up comedy because he is hilarious. He recently, did you see he recently came out about his Tourette's? Yeah. He's got Tourette's syndrome, which is something that was brave of him to do, to come out and talk about it. But also, I didn't expect it. I had no idea because people were always saying like they just thought it was him being a weird guy who was on drugs or whatever. And I genuinely thought that. And then when he came out, I thought that explains it all because he's always like doing little like moving his head around and that. And I just thought, maybe he's just tweaking or something like that. But no, man's got Tourette's, so fair play to him. He smashed it. But
I don't vote against Lewis Capaldi. I don't even like actively dislike his music. I think that he's a very talented musician. He can sing. He's got a great voice. I just don't think it's a Leeds Festival headliner for me. No. That's the only thing.
It's very bizarre. It is very bizarre.
And then underneath him, you've got Slow Tie, who I quite like Slow Tie. I think he's big enough for that spot. Always gets the crowd hyped, and he's just good in general. And Chase Atlantic, who I don't know too much, to be honest. Do you know much about him?
I'm not. I don't really know him too much. When I was reading it from this distance, I was like, when I first glanced, I said, Jason Statham.
I wish it was State Atlantic instead. And then underneath those, Baby Queen, I don't know. Georgia, I don't know. We've got Inhaler, who were one of my shouts for Live Act of the Year earlier on in the podcast. So love to see them. I've seen them a bunch of times. Always like just an up and coming indie band, which we love to see. And then I don't know any of the other people, but
Young Lean. I know of Young Lean. Again, it's just you're talking Trippie Redd, SoundCloud rap kind of thing, and it's good that they're hitting that demographic. But I think, how do you feel overall about the lineup?
Do you know what? I've got a theory about this Leeds Festival lineup.
It's a troll.
No.
They're going to release the real one in a month.
No. So my theory for Leeds Festival, Reading and Leeds Festival 2023, is that after all the trouble last year, after people setting tents on fire and kicking off and causing a bit of havoc, there was a fair few problems in the crowd. Someone died again. I think that they've really switched the lineup. Like, there's barely as many like UK rappers or rappers in general. Like last year when we were looking at like some of the subs, you had like Run the Jewels, Denzel Curry. You had Dave was one of the headliners. There was loads of like UK rappers and rappers about. Barely any on this poster at the minute. And I think they've done that. If you look at all the headliners, right? In my opinion, I like a lot of this music, but like Imagine Dragons, The Killers, Lewis Capaldi, Billie Eilish, and maybe even Foles at this point are all like 25 plus. Like most people who are like big fans, not Billie Eilish, most people who are big fans of the other acts are getting on a bit, you know what I mean?
I think also the thing is that the genres of music they've gone for are a lot calmer. Like there's no metal, there's no heavy rap.
Indie rock.
It's indie rock or even soft rock. You could go as far for some of the artists. So I think they're definitely making safer choices this year. But I think what you were saying about them getting all this crap for 2022, there've been fires and stuff. I can't imagine that doesn't get said every year. Because there's always shit kicking off, and it always seems the year that you go and you actually see it, you go, I was there and it seemed more hyped. But then the next year, if you don't go, you don't pay attention to it, but then you see all the news about it anyway. So maybe they're trying to take it easy. Maybe they're saying, let's have a year where we don't have any casualties. And then, 2024 will actually have an insane lineup, and then we can get away with some people getting hurt. Maybe that's their logic, like you're saying. But overall, I'm a bit upset by it, and this is unrelated, but I'm also upset by a fair few lineups that have been announced so far, and I've seen that lineups around the same time in other countries are tenfold better than ours. Download's 20th anniversary, that lineup has Metallica twice, which some people say is ace, and I'm like, that's 4 days. You added the extra day to add the same headline act. Seems a bit of I don't know.
Cop out.
But it's it's festivals like that where I've seen across the seas, everything else is looking good. There's only in fact, 2 UK festivals that I've seen that look good, and that's Outbreak in Manchester, which is Denzel and Death Grips, and then Slam Dunk, which the bands that are in big names on Slam Dunk, I'm for everything there. So at least we've got some stuff to look forward to, even if not for Leeds Fest.
I do actually agree. I feel like a lot of the UK festivals now, I feel like they're just really overpriced for what they're booking. Like Leeds Fest to me seems a bit like they might have just spent all the money on Billie Eilish, because like the Festival Republic have done loads of big gigs with Fender and Foles and all that through the years. Imagine Dragons are known as a cheap booking as a headliner. I wouldn't imagine Lewis Capaldi's too expensive at this point. So I feel like the fuck have they spent all the money on? Do you know what I mean? But yeah, as you said, a lot of the festivals abroad are elite compared to ours. Like for the same price, it's mental.
Like Rock am Ring, like Germany and like mid Europe is amazing for like metal and rock, and they always get the most insane lineups. And then Vegas and places in America, they always
when we were young
insane.
Is well good,
right? And then you look at it compared to ours, and I get it because artists are predominantly American, or they might have more money at Rock am Ring because it's a bigger stadium anyway, and they've got all the stuff for it. But Slam Dunk can't complain.
Yeah,
but
again, it's also like over £100 for Slam Dunk now, which is when I first went in like 2017, it was like 60 quid.
Yeah, right. It was like
it's nearly doubled in price.
Yeah, you could do your whole day for £100. Never mind just the ticket. So yeah.
Thank you for watching. That was a clip from the Man Overboard podcast.
And if you enjoyed it, don't forget to click on the links down below, because we're on every streaming service, and that's where you can find full episodes.
Peace.